Gravitas, co-presented by Skoda. Kushak, choose what really matters.
But here's something else that both China and America can agree on, and that's oil. It's becoming too expensive. The world economy is coming out of the pandemic shock. China is eager to hit the ground running, but oil prices are holding them back. So what does Beijing do? Tweak the global oil market. Let me tell you how. All major countries have strategic oil reserves. Think of it as backup oil. Suppose there's a war or some natural disaster. Oil supply gets disrupted. That's when these reserves come into play, strategic oil reserves. They're like an insurance. Now, China is selling oil from these strategic reserves. It's economics 101. More supply means lower prices. The rumor is that Beijing has done this before, but this time they have publicly admitted it. Here's what the Chinese government says. Putting national reserve crude oil on the market through open auction will better stabilize the domestic market supply and demand and effectively guarantee national energy security. Just to be clear, this is not the idea behind holding strategic reserves. They are meant as backup during emergencies. But China is using it to influence prices. It's fair enough, it's their oil, they can hold it, they can sell it, they can dump it. The bigger question is this: why is China burning through its reserves? Why is it so desperate? Because the Chinese economy is taking a hit. Factory inflation has hit a 13-year high. Raw materials, including energy, are too expensive. So China is actually rationing power. There are reports of blackouts in several provinces. Of course, power cuts are not a viable strategy, especially for the so-called factory of the world. So China has opted for an alternative plan. It's tapping its strategic reserves. And I'm not talking about just oil. In July, China dumped a huge cache of metals. Look at the figures. 30,000 tons of copper, 90,000 tons of aluminium, and 50,000 tons of zinc. These are 3 auctions that China announced. Many more could have been done covertly, and that's the problem with Chinese policies. So much secrecy, so many shadow games. For instance, Beijing announced that it will sell oil from its strategic reserves, or it was selling. But how many barrels? When will it happen? China won't say. We're talking about one of the largest reserves in the world. In 2017, China admitted that they had 9 oil reserves around the country. Combined, they had a capacity of 37.7 million tons. And that was in 2017. Beijing's plan was to have 85 million tons of oil by 2020. Did they achieve that? Again, we don't know. But if they did, it would put China almost on par with America's Strategic Petroleum Reserves, or the SPR as they call it, the world's largest reservoir of backup oil. Last month, the US released 20 million barrels from the SPR. Hurricane Ida halted oil production in the Gulf of Mexico, so Washington wanted to avoid disruptions. They also asked OPEC Plus to step up oil production, something they refused to do. So China took matters into their own hands. Did it work? Yes, it did. Oil prices recorded a 2-week low. Brent crude dropped 1.6%, while US oil indices dropped 1.7%. It's definitely a warning to OPEC. If you don't control oil prices, we will. That's the big message that China is trying to send. It's the biggest energy consumer in the world, and it is not at the mercy of West Asian oil producers. China has enough reserves to stabilize oil prices on its own. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.
Gravitas, co-presented by Skoda. Kushak, choose what really matters.